Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For, take 2. We're trying this again. Should be better. I restarted my computer. It took a long time to restart, about 10 minutes or so. So it's about 9:30 now. So hopefully this works better and I'm not cutting in and out every time. Sometimes it's Trev on the road or everything. I'm, usually at home here. Internet's pretty good. MCG is pretty quality stuff with their internet. I've not really had any complaints, but I do think it was the computer needed restarted. I don't actually think it was the internet. But good to be back here. Sounds way better just through our headsets and everything. So lots to talk about. Again, thanks for everybody for listening. Live on YouTube, live on my Facebook page, and I believe for the first time we are live on my Twitter as well. Not 100% sure on this. This will be the first time for that. I believe I got that set up today. So wherever you're joining us, if you're able to leave a comment, which I think is YouTube for sure, maybe Twitter, but I don't think so, or X, I guess is what it's called now. Facebook, I don't think we can see them. Trev and I both go back kind of after the show and answer stuff. Our friend Taylor keeps bringing up WWE stuff, so maybe I just need to have him on and we'll just have a WWE episode. Before we kind of got cut off, I want to start with Trev's weekend in California. I guess I shouldn't say that for sure. I assume it was in California, watching future Hawkeye, McDonald's All-American, Maddie Deal. Trev, go through that, why you were there, what made you go see her, and then your interaction with her, because we did see pictures and stuff as well.
Yeah, so after the Iowa-Michigan State game, I was scrolling on Instagram, looking at some of the highlights of the game, and then her stat line popped up that the playoffs were going on. So I knew she was from California. That's about all I knew, so just got to see them where they were playing. I had to figure out what high school she was even at and all that, and then I saw that they were playing at Etiwanda High School, and it was the Elite Eight round, as they were calling it. So looked up tickets. It was like $11 to get there, and the high school was about 12 minutes from where I was staying. So I didn't have anything else to do that night. Decided to go to the game. Wore the Hawkeye shirt, and then right when I walked in, her mom actually came up and started talking to me, asking where I was from in Iowa, and I had forgotten that their son actually plays basketball at Grinnell. I think he's a sophomore this year. So we got to talking about Grinnell. My brother has worked there for a number of years now. They've been to Grinnell plenty of times, Iowa City. So that's kind of how it all got started. And then going into the game.
Sorry to interrupt, but that is the connection, because Lisa Bluter's son is at Grinnell as well, correct? So that is another connection there that helps get her to Iowa.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's exactly how it got the first time it got started. Obviously, she's a high recruit, so everybody, all the colleges are looking at her. So, but yeah, you're right. That is another connection there with Lisa Bluter's son playing there, and then her brother playing as well. And then going into the game, I had no idea what to expect. At the time, I didn't even realize this. This was a number 7 and number 8 ranked teams in the nation. So not just California, but in the entire country. So the first thing that I noticed is obviously there's a lot of players on the court that are going to go play at colleges. I have no idea where, but you could tell the talent level was really high. If you didn't know anything about it, which was basically me, I just knew she was number 3. It's about all I knew. You could tell just by watching her that if you just went in the gym and had to ask who's the most likely to go play big-time college basketball, I think anybody could clearly point her out. And I think she finished with right around 30 points, I think 6 rebounds and maybe 5 assists. So she was impressive. The next thing I noticed was the speed and physicality of the game. It was way quicker than anything I'd ever seen. The first couple minutes, I'm just sitting there kind of laughing to myself because I wasn't sure if my eyes were playing tricks on me. I haven't been to a high school game in a long time. So after the game, I saw that Jody Wynn, Addie's coach, she coached at the University of Washington for a number of years, played at USC during her college days, and she said this was one of the most physical and fast-paced games she's ever been a part of. So, again, my eyes weren't playing tricks on me. To put it in perspective, I graduated in 2008. If you took our class of girls and the 3 or 4 ahead of us and the 3 or 4 below us, and you combine the best starting 5, whoever that would have been, I'd put the over-under on points per quarter scored at 0.5. I don't even know if our all-star 5 of those 6, 7, 8 years could even get the ball past half court. I mean, the speed was insane. Matter Day lost. Addie Day lost by 10. She missed her first few shots in the game. They got down by 10 points in the first half, and then they came back a little bit in the second, made it a 2-point game at half. And then Etiwanda came out on an 8-0 run in the second. And then from there on out, it was constantly an 8, 10, 12-point game. And they couldn't quite claw back. They'd get it to 12, to 10, to 8. They'd get a steal and then have a chance to get it to 6 or 5 points, and they just couldn't get the shot to fall. So it was a fast-paced game. Like I said, it felt like it was 5-on-6 or 5-on-7. I mean, the speed and the defense by the other team was like something I'd never seen before. And then the last thing that stuck out was Etiwanda got hit with 2 technicals in the game. And you know me, I'm pretty easy going on stuff. I'm not big on like shaking hands after. I thought they should have had 5 technicals. And I don't know what happens if you get that many in a high school game, but there was a lot of chirping going on, pushing, shoving. Etiwanda had some girls getting in the face of the Matter Day players, pointing at them, turning around, walking at the refs, pointing in their face, refs backing down from the players. At one point, we had the benches clear, people running onto the court. The announcer,
a little different than Iowa high school basketball, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. The announcer had to say, "Parents, please do not come on the court." Cops are everywhere. They finally got everybody separated, and then go ahead.
Question for you: is the other high school a private high school as well? Because Matter Day is the other one a public school or a private school? Do you know?
I'm not sure. They called this the open division, so I'm not sure exactly how all that works. I didn't really have time to talk to people and figure all that out. I didn't know
if you could figure that. So I mean, a lot of times you can figure it out. Like they have a prayer before the game. Like you go to PC and you've done that. And you go to PC, you have a prayer before the game, stuff like that. That you don't have at Oskaloosa schools or whatever.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing any prayer at this one. So, and then with about 2 minutes left in the game, one of the Matter Days players fouled out, just a common foul, no big deal. She's walking off the court with her head down, and 2 of the Etiwanda players are pointing at her that are on the court, walking toward her, doing the hand motion right beside the ref. The ref's within arm's distance of these 2 players, and one of them yells, "Get the blank off the floor." Nothing. No tech, no nothing. So the refs had no control over the game. Like I said, if you or Zach were reffing that, I think there would have been easily 5 technicals called. So I don't know if that's the norm out there. Big time high school basketball in California. Maybe that's just an every game type event. Maybe it was an outlier, but toward the end of the game there, like I said, when the bench was cleared in that second half, I'm just sitting there thinking like, this is how viral videos start.
We're gonna get Trevor on the internet. It's some random California game. What the heck is Trevor doing?
Have somebody run by and punch me in the face or something. I don't know. I was there by myself, so I'm like, I'm not moving or anything. But it the speed, the physicality, and like I said, the chirping back and forth it's different than what we're used to in Iowa, way different. So that was pretty eye-opening. But again, the skill level, it was different. I'm used to, like I said, watching high school basketball in Iowa. The girls that I graduated with, helped Corey Sheely coach for a couple of years. This was on a different level.
Yeah, I could only imagine. And even the best players in Iowa, I have not watched high level. I mean, obviously you watch the state tournament and stuff, but you get to that high level, it is different. But again, without all the backstory and insight, you just can't make an educated guess if that's every game or just this game or not usually between these 2 teams, but this one just kind of got out of hand, or you just can't make the guess. So you just don't know.
Yeah. And tough to say, but no, her parents were really nice. Like I said, they came up and talked to me right away. They seemed like normal folks. Gave me a T-shirt and a cowbell and some other stuff for coming to the game. So it was pretty cool. Like I said, I think she finished with 29 or 30 points, about 6 rebounds, 5 assists. They lost by 10, but yeah, she's definitely, I think, going to play right away. Obviously this next coming season at Iowa. So it was cool to see, and just a different level of speed and intensity. That's for sure.
All right. Let's transition into the current Hawkeyes. Friday night was their last game of the regular season conference tournament before they get into the NCAA tournament next week. Overall, pretty good tournament for them. They won 2 games, correct? They beat Wisconsin, and then they beat Michigan State, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then they lost in a very good game against Ohio State, who Ohio State's pretty good now. Ohio State, the next night got ran out of the gym. which was that's always a little bit disheartening when the team beats you and then doesn't even really show up the next day. But some of that had to do with Iowa and the Ohio State game being really close, really physical, all the way down essentially to the last few possessions there.
Yeah, for the Ohio State game, there's really not much I was too upset about, and nothing in my mind's changed about Iowa. I still think if they play well, they can get to the Sweet 16. We'll talk about their potential matchups here in a second, but Kylie Feuerbach had a wide open three there with about 30 seconds left. I was fine with her taking it. If she makes that, we go up 4, and then right as the foul in the free throw game, you take your odds, or you take your chances there up 4 in that situation. So I like the shot. We get the ball back, I think, with about 7 seconds left. The only complaint I really had is I would like to see Ava Hayden in the game. I think she was 11 of 14 in the 3 tournaments, or the 3 tournament games up to that point. She was the hottest player as far as shooting goes for Iowa. And when a player's on a hot streak like that, you just got to ride them. So I would have liked to have seen her in the game, but they ran a play to Sydney, didn't work. That's fine. It happens. I did like with 0.7 left, though, that we at least got a shot off.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
That's Stolke had a good shot. That's all you can ask for.
Yeah, that's all you can ask for. She got a pretty clean look. It was just a little bit off, but I mean, with 0.7 left, if you can just get the ball in the air toward the rim, you're pretty happy. So, yeah, wanted to win the game. I'd like to think that Iowa would have put up a better fight against UCLA than Ohio State did, but Iowa didn't earn the right to find that out. But again, I still have no doubts that they can get to a Sweet 16, and this is kind of talking about next year too, but I wouldn't mind seeing Ava Hayden start in the first game of March Madness. Her and Stolke, obviously Lucy and Sydney, and then I don't care if you start McCabe or Kylie, take your pick on that. But I would go in with Ava Hayden starting. She's on fire right now. You gotta ride that hot streak, like I said, while it's still going. And I think you can catch your opponent off guard a little bit doing that.
And that's the one. McCabe had 2 open threes. Not at the real end of the game, but probably about 4 or 5 minutes left. Kind of back-to-back opportunities to get the lead either more or to take the lead. I can't remember exactly, but there was 2 good looks that they needed her to hit at least one of them. You're not going to hit every one, but if you want to get to the Sweet 16, she's going to have to hit some shots. That's what she's there for. That's what she's getting paid to do. I mean, in literally terms, is to knock down 3-pointers, and she needs to do that.
Yeah, I think she was 0 for 6. So that typically you give her 6 shots, she's going to at least make 1 or 2. So yeah, that goes with the tournament for any team. I mean, you can go in on a good winning streak into March Madness, and if you have a bad night shooting, you're on home. Same thing. If you go in kind of on a bad streak, but you have a good night shooting, you can beat just about anybody. So other than kind of the 1 and 2 seeds, the 1 and 2 seeds can typically get away early with a bad game and still win just because of their talent level. But no, Iowa, nothing really changed for me. And I just looked a little bit ago. ESPN had him at a number 6 seed, which is what we kind of figured. Mm-hmm. They would have to, if it goes chalk, they would have to play Duke to get to the Sweet 16. That's going to be a tough game. And then this particular bracket, again, if it goes chalk, would have TCU versus Iowa in the Sweet 16. I think it was. So Haley Van Lith, I think
third time in 3 years, right?
Yes, that Iowa's played
LSU, Louisville, and then now TCU. Yeah, I think I did hear that if it goes the way it could be 3 years in a row, and she was really good. And she was Big 12 Player of the Year, and TCU won the conference. And TCU went from last year, kind of transitioned maybe a little bit into the Big 12 tournament with Iowa State, but TCU last year was open practice or open tryouts for players. And now this year they won the Big 12, got Haley Van Lith. Just that's how fast money and you can change things in college sports today. It's so much different than before. You don't have to give a coach 3-4 years now. It's if you can see it's not working after 1, maybe 2 years, you can let them go because it's probably not going to work. Because you can do it instantly. TJ Altenberger at Iowa State obviously did it instantly. Example here in the women's game with TCU, it can change that fast, and that's the discussion with Iowa going forward, which we'll have here in a few minutes. It can change that fast. You don't have to. Well, is the new coach going to be that much better than Fran? Well, we don't know, but we know it can happen, and you'll never know unless you try.
Yeah, I think this was Haley Van Lith's first conference championship
Yep.
there with TCU. And you're right, it happened in one season. That's how quick it can go. And one last thing for Iowa women, now that you brought up, obviously Haley Van Lift transferred to TCU. The only really concern I have for Iowa women next year is who's going to play the point. Leah Guyton, she can handle the ball well, and she's fast. But the one thing I noticed, especially against Ohio State, she's got tunnel vision. She had Lucy Olson open a couple times. All she had to do was just pass it to her right, and she didn't even see her. So that's my big concern for next year is who's going to play the point. Maybe Addison Deal can. Maybe Iowa brings in another transfer. Again, they don't have to be as good as Lucy Olson or even score as much. I'm just more worried about getting the ball up the court and then making the correct passes. But again, that might be something for Iowa. Do they bring in a transfer player? But again, back to Haley Van Lift and TCU, they're getting the wins. Looks like they're going to probably be a 2 seed in the tournament. And then looks like Iowa State women is the last 4. And I did see them as a 10 seed when I looked a little bit ago.
Yeah, it a little bit here or there, but I think with their couple wins in the Big 12 tournament did help them. The win against Kansas State, the last game of the regular season, helped them. And so I do think they're in the tournament. Yes, there's some people have them last 4 in playing those play-in games. Some of them have them not in the play-in games, but as like you just said, 10, 11 seed. But they're in, and it's a little bit disappointing, but they are a team that, just like last year, where they played the number 2 seed Stanford, and they gave them all they wanted. In the first, Addie Brown scored 41 points in the win down in the Big 12 title game, and then Audie Crooks scored 30 in the next game. So, I mean, they got 2 people that can score at will, and if you can get a little bit of help from somebody else, and like you said, one of the other girls goes 4 for 5 from 3, all of a sudden it's 66, 68 with a minute left, and you got a chance. And that's all you can ask for. I would say overall this has been a little bit disappointing year, but I think it comes down to the senior 6th year was hurt. And I shouldn't even say hurt, had her physical limitations with her mental, disorder, whatever you want to call whatever you want to call it, was just her physical issues, wasn't able to play as much and give everything she had just because of her physical deficiencies this year compared to past years. Like she was first team all conference as a sophomore. Last year was, I think, second or maybe honorable mention, and then this year was just honorable mention. So not as good a player as physically on the court. I mean, I think mentally and a coach on the court just as good, if not better, but just wasn't able to do maybe what we wanted her to do this year because of the limitations.
Yeah, their season didn't go quite as expected throughout the regular season, which is kind of the opposite of Iowa State men. But if they can go on a run and win a game, and then like I said, in the round of 32, maybe give their opponent a heck of a game or even win it, all of a sudden the season turns around just like that for Iowa State women.
Well, and this is because they all played last year too. Iowa State starts 4 sophomores. That's the thing too. Emily Ryan's a 6-year player, but all the other 4 starters are all sophomores. So along those same lines, got to keep here. Obviously, with players scoring 30 points, 40 points, people are going to call. Obviously, Audie Crooks is from here in Iowa, but Addie Brown's from Kansas, so not homegrown Iowa State fan all her life. So money's got to come, got to be good enough for them to keep them there. And then, just like every team, you got to go try to get someone. We need a point guard. You got to go try to get one. I'll be honest, I don't know who they have coming in, high school recruits or whatever. But you have to always be ready to get the best player you can with the resources you have. And then just in realistic terms of today's college basketball world, somebody's going to leave that you certainly don't want to leave. That's the reality. Then you replace them as well.
Yeah, the fact that most of them are sophomores coming back next year is a good sign. To make the tournament 2 years in a row with that core group of players will be big. So next year, the expectations will be high again for Iowa State women, as they should be. We'll see what they do here. And then, speaking of transfers and the one of the two good men's team in Iowa. Let's go to Iowa State men, and then I know we got to talk about Drake men too.
Yeah, Iowa State lost senior night against double OT against BYU, which that was a tale of two games. Started off pretty well. Then there was about a 15-minute stretch where they played god awful and got down 21 points. Then they came back and actually took the lead and then went to double overtime and just couldn't get over the hump and end up losing that game to BYU, who's one of the hottest teams in the country. Won 8-9 games in a row, just skyrocketing up the polls and the bracketology. And going to have to, if Iowa State wins, they play Cincinnati. Cincinnati won their game today in the Big 12 tournament against Oklahoma State. Iowa State plays Cincinnati tomorrow at 11:30. Iowa State wins that game. They play BYU in the 4-5 game on Thursday at around 11:30 as well. Iowa State's on the top half of the bracket, so it's all morning games until you get to the semis and finals when it's in the evenings down in Kansas City. Conference tournaments, just with the Big 10 and Big 12, different. Conferences are bigger, different teams there. The Big 10, not every team is even there. Iowa did get in. We'll talk about them here in just a second. But Iowa State, it's all about getting healthy and playing and peaking at the right time. Essentially, it didn't matter if Iowa State went 30-3 like Drake did this year, or they're 24-8 or whatever they are right now. Their season is defined not even this upcoming week. They could lose tomorrow, and it stinks. You don't want them to, but it doesn't matter if they'd get to the Elite Eight or Final Four. They could go win this tournament, be on a high. You lose in the first or second round, it's not a good year. Their season doesn't matter until starting next week.
Yeah, that's right. And you spoke about getting healthy, it sounds like there were some players sick, on the team. Hopefully get that out of the way. I did look a little bit earlier, obviously just looking at kind of betting odds. Iowa State is 25-1 to win the national title, but if you just want to bet them to get to the Final Four, they are 4-1. So that is,
and I think they're 7th or 8th one to get to the Final Four. So at one time they were 3rd or 4th when they were number 2 in the country. So that dropped a little bit, and their odds have dropped a lot. Actually, doubled. It was about 2-1 earlier in the year, but in that game against BYU and against that game against Arizona, who's pretty good, and that game against Kansas State, where Kansas State never had a chance, they've shown they can still be that really, really good team. But they got to put all 40 minutes together. They need all 8 players as healthy as you can be. No one's 100% healthy this time of year. But Curtis Jones, they talked about today how he had that walking pneumonia, missed the Oklahoma State game, came back and did not play well the next game, and how he just didn't have any gas. Like there's just he could not catch his breath, and he's finally healthy again. And I do think he might have been the sickest of the team, but I do think some sickness went through this team, kind of like went through Illinois. Illinois had that as well, and they even one time didn't shake hands, which was right up your alley. But Brad Underwood told Greg Gard, Wisconsin's coach, hey, we're not going to shake hands, and it's not because we're trying to be, not good sports or anything. He goes, we're sick. We don't want to get you guys sick, trying to do the right thing. And they went through a little struggle there, but I think they're turning it around as well. And I don't know about out west there, but Iowa, there was just lots and lots of people sick around here as well. It wasn't just college basketball teams. It was a lot of people in this country were pretty sick, I think, at different times this year.
Yeah, it's been going around everywhere. I think hopefully we're getting toward the end of it. I saw the Illinois the team and the coach decided to not shake hands, and of course they got a bunch of crap for that too. But It's like, what do you want them to do? They're trying to do the right thing. I did see before we got started, ESPN did have Iowa State as a number 3 seed in their latest bracketology.
I think it really doesn't matter that much what happens this week. I suppose if you would win 4 games and you play the best team possible each time, so you beat Cincinnati tomorrow, then you beat BYU, who you got beat by and who's the best seed, the 4 seed. Then if you could beat Houston, the 1 seed, and then go beat Texas Tech, who's a 2 seed. Houston's a 1 seed. Texas Tech's probably another 3 with you, you would have depending on how everybody else does it. It's not just if you do this happens. If St. John's would lose right away in their Big East tournament, Michigan State would lose right away in the Big Ten tournament. Those teams that are around you, if they would lose early and then you go win it, you might be able to get 1 seed line. But I think realistically right now, if you go to bracketmatrix.com, they do a really good job where they put like 100 brackets together and then take the average. And I think Iowa State today was like the third 3. So I think realistically try to get up to the second or first 3. And then maybe that bottom 2. But that would be at the very worst. And I don't think, I suppose if you lose tomorrow, say we'd lose by 20 tomorrow to Cincinnati, you could maybe drop to that number 1-4, which would not be good because then you got to play number 1 seed in the Sweet 16. If you can get there, the 4-5 game's always difficult. But I do think it's pretty much a 3. And then looking at bracketology, Lenardi and CBS, Jerry Palm, have them as 3s in Milwaukee, which is ideal. I mean, obviously, you'd love to be a 1 or a 2, and you'd still be in Milwaukee. But if you can play in Milwaukee, you got a great, great chance because you have great fans there.
Yeah, Milwaukee would be an ideal spot for Iowa State to go. Like you said, it'd be a pretty quick trip for all the fans to get up there. Iowa State fans are going to travel well anyway. So
I will be there if they're in Milwaukee.
Yeah, there you go. That'd be perfect just about. And I did see also when I was looking a little bit ago, they had Drake in as a number 10 seed. I know I thought I saw him about 11 last week, but now it looks like they might be a 10 versus Louisville. And it did look like if that bracketology held up, they would play the number 2 seed Bama in the following round, which would obviously be a tough one, but that'd be pretty cool to see if Drake could get a couple wins. Obviously, we've been talking about them here for a while, and they did what they had to do, so now they're in.
Yep. Yeah, they're in. Really good. They're good. That quarterback, Bennett Sturts, he is their quarterback. Looks like a quarterback, but point guard Bennett Sturts just controls the game. He has the ball in his hands 90%. He plays every minute he's played the most minutes in college basketball. They do this where someone has the ball in his hand. He has the ball in his hand the most in all of college basketball, and he just hits shot after shot and makes play after play. And it's amazing. He was a D2 player last year and the year before that. I've heard a couple places that he is off to Kansas State next year, kind of no matter what. And they've proven with Coleman Hawkins, they'll pay whatever it is. He is from, I believe, Liberty, Missouri. And I'm pretty sure his dad and mom are Kansas State graduates, might even been athletes there. His girlfriend goes to K-State. But I would think if everything stays status quo, I would say that's true. But I believe that their coach, Ben McCollum, will not be at Drake next year. Don't know where he'll be. I think he could be driving 2 hours east and being a Hawkeye. So then it's just a decision. Kansas State, Iowa. I do think he's going to get more in play for Indiana because Indiana is having to go down their list from everything I've seen from Jeff Good, one of the best basketball college reporters. TJ Otzelberger said no. Scott Drew said no. Dustin May said no. So they're getting down their list, and Ben McCollum is rising fast. And that would be a hard job to turn down if you're in Ben McCollum's shoes. I think TJ Otzelberger, Dustin May, you're at a place that you can do the same things as Indiana without the pressure. Now, Michigan's a little different than Iowa State. They've been to the Final Four. They are one of the premier institutions in the Big Ten. And Indiana is a basketball. They think they're Nebraska football. Indiana, they want to get back to 1980s Indiana basketball. They want to go back to Bob Knight winning. And I don't think they want coaches to be like Bob Knight, but they want to win like Bob Knight did. So TJ Otzelberger, if he would somehow go 500 next year, he's not getting pressure. Now, there'd be people that start questioning him, but he's built up enough leeway where he can have a year or two of not great. You go to Indiana, first year, 500, okay. Second year, you better win and win now. So I don't know if he wants that, but Indiana is also going to pay him about $6 million a year or more, and he's going to be able to have a roster of a lot of money in NIL compared to Drake and compared to almost anybody. Indiana will support their basketball program.
Yeah, I just looked while you were talking there. Drake to make the Final Four, if you're a betting person, it's 90-1. So I just wanted to see what that was to make the Final Four. But no, for him, if he was to go to Iowa, do you have any idea what the pay difference would be between Iowa and Indiana? Is it pretty much the same? Obviously, it's going to be more than Drake, of course.
So Drake is private, so they do not have to say. Mm-hmm. I would say it's probably about $1 million a year, if I had to make a guess. Obviously, which is very good living in Des Moines, Iowa. Fran McCaffrey, I think, gets 4.5 a year. I would say they'll pay up, maybe not him because he hasn't, but I think there's some coaches that I think they would go up and pay like 6 for. But really, it's not about how much he gets paid, the coach, because obviously $4.5 million is a lot of money in Iowa City and in most places. It's how much NIL money. What's your budget? And right now, Iowa men's basketball is not good. But that's going to be the issue with Hawkeye basketball. That's why Darren DeVries won't come there if he doesn't come there, I think. West Virginia, he's getting paid $4 million a year, but his NIL budget is probably double, maybe even 3 times what Fran McCaffrey's budget is right now. So Iowa's going to have to make a commitment and step up their NIL game if they want Darren DeVries. And just anybody, or else they're going to start having to go down their list because I think Ben McCollum's going to have some suitors. Indiana might be between Iowa and Indiana. He's an Iowa guy. He's from Storm Lake, was born in Iowa City. His mom's a judge, so I would almost guess he was probably born while she was going to law school, would be my guess. But grew up at Storm Lake, went to Storm Lake St. Mary's, then went to Northwest and player, coach, head coach, and now Drake. So Iowa would be one of those jobs that he covets. But you got to do what's best for your family and your career. You can go to Indiana, have all the resources, and it's just, if you don't win, it's kind of your fault. You go to Iowa, you can coach your butt off. But if your roster is $1 million, Indiana's roster is $4 million, it's hard to win. It's the Miami Marlins versus the New York Yankees. I mean,
yeah, essentially,
it's not that they can't win, but it's really, really hard.
Yeah, it's basically a salary cap now with the NIL for each school's got a different amount. I did see that Keith Murphy, before we got started, posted that Iowa's attendance is down even like 13% from last year for the Iowa men. That's another problem too that's got to get fixed. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Yes, I did. I think I saw where there was 2 games that were over 10,000 people there. That's unbelievable. Iowa State and one other game. And it holds 14. And I think the average was less than 5,000, so less than a third game. And there was a couple that were just barely over 2,000. Actually, now that's not paid. That's actual attendance because there's probably 5,000 to 7,000 season tickets would be my guess. Just because there's people that write the check. Every school has it that writes the check, the donation, and they buy a season ticket to every sport. That's just what they do. That's their donation. It's all a tax write-off and everything. But they never actually went to the game and didn't even give their tickets away. That's what's crazy too, is you can't even find people to give them to.
Yeah, I saw the Iowa, whatever, the meme on Instagram. It says, "Oh no, somebody broke into my car and put 2 Iowa men's tickets in there." Yeah. So that's a problem. They've got to get that figured out. They got to get fans at the stands. So that's going to be, that's you and Zach talked about. It's going to be tough with Iowa women doing so well right now, and it looks like Iowa women aren't going to be slowing down over the next 3 to 4 years. So that's a whole nother battle too. Is trying to get people to come to the games, because again, most people have to pick and choose. You can't go to a game every other night, or you got family stuff going on. So
just money. You got to choose. Most people don't have the money to do both. Mm-hmm. And that's why McCaffrey is going to get fired. It's not actual wins and losses. It's not on the basketball court. It's not because the player's hating. It is money. It's a financial decision. It costs a lot of money to fire him, to buy out all the coaches, to buy out the new coach at his old place, and to hire. I mean, it's going to be a $15 million transaction for that. But if you get the fans coming and you get 14,000 in every game, you'll make most of that back up next year. But if Fran comes back next year, you're going to have the same attendance at the start. Now, somehow, if you would, win every game in November and December and you're ranked 23rd, then they're going to start coming. I mean, don't kid yourself. Winning cures all, but you're still just don't have the fan apathy is a real thing, and that costs money. Fran's going to get fired because he doesn't connect with his fans. That's what it comes down to. He doesn't go on radio programs. He doesn't go on podcasts. He doesn't go out and talk to people.
Yeah, he's a little bit older, and he's probably stuck in his ways with that. I don't mind it, but yeah. I also understand it's what you have to do nowadays. You
have to be a salesman.
You have to be a salesman.
That's
and he's
the job.
All accounts are his players love him. You always hear that. So, like you said, the connection with the players really isn't the problem. It's the being basically 500 this year. But the biggest thing, like we talked about, is there's not enough people at the games, and eventually you got to get that fixed. Because Carver Hawkeye's a great arena. We see what it's like when the women are rolling. It's filled up. It's loud. It's a great environment. So, yeah, that's probably the biggest issue right now. I'd have to agree is you got to get more people there. And as you said, going into next year, if he's back, they're not going to be there at the beginning. Now, like you said, if they get ranked at some point, they'll start to come back to the games. But that is the biggest issue.
Yeah, if he had 10,000 people there every game this year, he'd be back. No questions asked. Because he's done well enough there that, yes, this year did not go as planned, but he can withstand losing a year or two if people were still coming and if the fans were still engaged, but they're not.
Yeah, we've talked about it most of the year. I haven't hardly watched them at all. So, and I'm more of a casual. I'd rather watch the women anyway. But I know a lot of people want to watch Iowa men, and they do watch from TV, of course. But yeah, you got to have fans in the stands. It's a bad look all around. And he's got 1 year left on the contract.
Yeah, so his buyout's like $4 million, so it's next year's salary. So the athletic department can afford it. They haven't fired a coach. They have not fired a major coach since 2009 when they fired Licklider. So it's not like they've fired 4 coaches in the last 5 years and money's an issue. Money's not an issue at Iowa from the athletic department. Now, I do think the NIL world, they are not doing as well as they would like to. But then that's because of the coach as well. If you got a new coach that fired up the fan base, your donations would go up. So it's a chicken or the egg thing. It's really a self-fulfilling prophecy for the Hawkeyes. And by them winning on Sunday and going to the Big Ten tournament and being the 15 seed, it just prolongs the inevitable, in my opinion. I think they lose tomorrow night, and then I believe Thursday morning a change is announced in Iowa City. And then give it about a week to 10 days, depending on who they decide to hire and how long that team goes.
So for college basketball, we know the NFL, there's a little hold-off period, but if they want to go after some of these other coaches that are in the tournament, do they have to wait, or can they just start talking right away? Do you have any idea?
I'm going to say it's already a done deal.
Yeah.
Right now. The decision's been made. The calls have been had. Now, is there a signed contract? Is there anything official? Absolutely not. Back channels, they know if Darren DeVries will come. They know if Ben McCollum will come. They know. I think you need to talk to 3 or 4 other coaches. I think Chris Jans at Mississippi State would be one. He's an Iowa guy. He's from Wapsie Valley. I think the Wake Forest coach, Steve Forbes, would be one you'd want to talk to. He's a Lone Tree guy, so he's an Iowa City guy. You need to talk to. And then I think Bradley's coach, Brian Wardle, would be one you'd want to talk to. He's done a good job at Bradley, been there 10 years. Not a guy you want to jump ship every time. And then Beth Getz may have some connections just where she's been. She's not been at Iowa a long time. She's been around a little bit. She has friends, and she would be doing a disservice if she didn't try to go get the best coach. It might not be Ben McCollum. It might not be Darren DeVries. Now, they make the most sense, and they're Iowa guys, but that doesn't mean it's going to be successful. Greg McDermott was a slam dunk hire when he got hired at Iowa State. Iowa guy, super successful at mid-major UNI. It didn't work. Then he's went to Creighton and been great again, been super, super close to the Final Four, and has Creighton as one of the best programs in the country right now. That's the one kicker with Darren DeVries. Is he wanting to wait for the Creighton job? He was at Creighton for 20 years under Dana Altman and Greg McDermott, and that's a really, really, really good job, because the thing you don't have to fight there, and we've talked about this on this podcast, there's no football there. It's all basketball. So, everybody's going to pay $20 million. They can pay almost all $20 million to basketball. And Iowa can't. They got to do 85% football, 5% basketball, 5% women's basketball, and then 5% for everybody else. I think that's the percentage I do. And I think wrestling goes off and does their own thing. They have the Hawkeye Club. But at Creighton, $20 million, 18 of it goes to men's basketball, $2 million for everybody else. That's a big number.
Yeah, it sounds like, I think what you're saying is our buddies Vince and Mike are going to have to dish out some money to the Iowa NIL. We're going to need them.
Yep.
Those guys got the big bucks up there near Iowa City, so they're going to have to chip in.
You live in Coralville and North Liberty or Iowa City, you got to buck up to your Hawkeyes.
Living right by the golf course, Vince does, right by the Oaks course. So it's for Iowa. That you're right. They've probably already done a bunch of conversations, behind the scenes. You're right. That's probably taken place. What else are they going to look at? Did you? I did have a question for you for March Madness. I did look betting odds. You can get Duke and Auburn versus the field at plus 175. Who would you take? Would you take the field or would you take those two? I
would take the field. Auburn has not looked as good lately. They got beat by Alabama on senior night. And then Duke is really, really good. They could win it all, and so could Auburn. I do think Auburn's overall the best team. A little bit worried with Duke because they're young. They're freshmen. Cooper Flagg's a freshman. And it's hard to win with young players, but he's really, really good. He'll be the number one pick in the draft. I would pick the field just because I think Houston's going to have a say in this. I think Houston's really, really good. And then Alabama's good. Florida's good. There's other teams that can get. Tom Izzo and Michigan State are playing really well right now. They're playing. He can get there. And he's won a championship before. Crazy enough, it's been 25 years since the Big Ten's won a title, though, when he won in 2000 when they beat Iowa State. The Big Ten has not won a championship. That's crazy. Now, they've been to a championship game several times. And Michigan, actually, the team that's probably been there the most in the Final Four is Michigan. Not even Michigan State since. Michigan's been there 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, Michigan State is playing better. I think they were 20-1 to win it all last I checked, or maybe 18. And then I did write down, them, Iowa State, and St. John's are all 4-1 to make the Final Four. So if you like any of those teams, I did write down. I was just looking at the KenPom rankings. Arizona's 12-1 to make the Final Four, and Clemson's 16-1. Their rankings are pretty good on there, so I thought maybe there's a couple long shots to make the Final Four. That might be worth a bet.
Yeah, and Clemson beat Duke in their only meeting this year so far, so we'll see how it does in the ACC tournament. And the other thing that scares you a little bit about Duke is they're beating everybody by 20, 30 points a game because the ACC is awful, which is crazy. Growing up, ACC was a Big East, and then the ACC took a lot of those Big East schools. So just made the ACC even better. But for some reason, the schools are bad now. Syracuse is bad. North Carolina is going to have 20 wins, but they're not good. Miami went to the Final Four not that long ago, but they're bad. Their coach quit in the middle of the year. Virginia's coach quit right before the season. It's crazy.
Yeah, looking at the odds, the SEC teams, and you can get Florida or Alabama at some pretty good ones. The SEC seems to be loaded, which is just so weird because most of our lives growing up, it was SEC was a football conference, and now they're both. It seems like so they've got.
You could make an argument that they're having a better basketball season than they did a football season.
Right.
I mean, they got 4 of the best 6 teams in the country.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's crazy. Florida could win it. Alabama, Auburn, and Tennessee. All 4 of those teams could go win the whole thing. Now, I don't believe. Now, here's a question. Here's an interesting take at Indiana. Do they go for Rick Pitino? He wins. I think he cheats, but he wins. But there's way less cheating now because it's just all legal now.
Yeah, I mean, at his age, does he want to move around again? I don't even know how old he is. I know he's older at this point,
Right.
But do you have any idea what his age is? Does he want to move again? Is he happy?
Well, he's a New York guy. I mean,
right.
And he was at Iona. Now he's at St. John's. And if you like Jimmy Fallon and kind of his singing and things, they do a thing with St. John's at the beginning of the show yesterday. I saw on YouTube or whatever. It was pretty funny. So if you like that, look on YouTube at Jimmy Fallon's YouTube site. It's pretty good and it has St. John's and it has Pitino. They're off a song that's kind of popular, making it a little bit sound like St. John's Red Storm and stuff. But I mean, he's never been anywhere too long. I mean, just in his whole career, Providence, Kentucky, New York, the Knicks, and then back to Louisville, then got in trouble and went to Iona and won, and now won again at St. John's. He's won everywhere he's been except for the NBA. But yeah, I mean, I think those teams have to make a call. If I'm Indiana, I call them. And you make people say no. I really believe that. Like Atumwa's looking for a new boys basketball coach, and there's some coaches out there that I think you have to call and you have to make them tell you no, and most likely they will, but make them. You can't just say, well, they're not going to come. We're not going to. No, if it's a coach you think would be successful here, you make the call. There's a couple coaches up in Des Moines and stuff that have some connections to Atumwa and everything, and hey. It's home. It's closer to home. It's whatever you want to do. You got to make them tell you no, and then when they do, you move on. But I think Beth Getz needs to do that too. You go for a home run guy. I mean, if you think you can go get somebody, go get him. I mean, I think you go call Bruce Pearl.
Mm-hmm.
You call him. He's going to tell you no, but I think you have to call him.
Yeah, make your pitch and see what happens. I mean, you got to at least make the call. The worst, if you're already expecting no, what's the worst that's going to happen? You get told no. Okay, that's what you got to make the call. That you got to make your sales pitch to them. I mean, and see what they say. So, yeah, for Iowa, you got to give Bruce Pearl a call. He's probably going to say no. That's fine, but at least you tried.
Yeah. Some of those people, and he's another one. He's never stayed anywhere very long, and he's been in trouble at different places, and he might see that his time there he's winning right now, and he's been to a Final Four, and it looks like he's going to get to another one. And but those guys sometimes see it that, hey, my time here is, his resources are drying up, or the recruiting's not going as well as it was the last 3 years, and some people just want to change. Yeah, you got to make him say no.
Yeah, for sure. And then I was going to ask you, I'd never written down, but are you going to do a bracket tournament challenge? Because I thought we could do I want to do at least a women's one too, and I got a gift card I could give out to a winner or something. But I know we didn't discuss it, but we can do that right now and then get the info out to people over the next week.
Yeah, I'd say. Well, I think we did it last year where the winner got. I think I went and I bought some Amazon gift cards or whatever. But I can go around and get some stuff. I can go get some gift cards and we can get a couple winners, women's and a men's one open, and we'll send the links out in our social media. On X and Facebook and Instagram, and we'll talk about it again next week. So next week will be the big preview show because then we'll have the bracket and everything. So, we'll be able to do that, and I'll be off for spring break next week, and I'm not going anywhere till later in the week. Obviously, the Milwaukee region is Friday, Sunday, so hopefully they play there, and so I'll be leaving on. So that's what's tough. They play Friday. Obviously, we won't know what time until Sunday evening. They could play at 11 o'clock in the morning, could play at 7 o'clock at night. But I don't want to drive all day Thursday up there because I want to watch the games. So it's like, oh crap. So I think the plan is if they go to Milwaukee, I want to get up and go Thursday morning, get to Wisconsin somewhere, stop, watch the games for a while, and get close to Milwaukee, stop for the night in a hotel, watch games at a bar or whatever, and then Friday morning get into Milwaukee and spend the day there.
Yeah, if you leave early enough, you can get ahead of it a little bit, and then you can take a look at the scores once you're getting close to Milwaukee. If you got some good games on in the second half, you can stop for a little bit. If they're blowouts, just keep driving and get up there. But yeah, hopefully it is Milwaukee or somewhere close. So a lot of Iowa State fans.
Milwaukee or Wichita. Milwaukee obviously closer by even about 2.5 hours. I think I did. It's only like 5.5 hours to Milwaukee from here. It's about 8 to Wichita. Then the next closest would be Denver, and that's 12. Denver would be hard to get there and back just to get back for Monday morning. I guess I should look. I haven't looked at Denver enough. Maybe it's Thursday, Saturday, and that would be better. Obviously, then you can just drive back on Sunday, but I don't know that. I haven't looked at Denver enough. That was kind of, Iowa State's been from a number 1 seed where it was guaranteed. If you're for a 1 seed, it's guaranteed Milwaukee when they were number 2 in the country. And over the last month, they just keep dropping, and it's went, Wichita, Denver. I saw one that was in Providence. I think it's one. I'm like, well, I'm not going to Providence. Yeah. So, and then, the Sweet 16 games, depending on what region you're in, I think is Indianapolis, Atlanta, San Francisco, and then somewhere out east. So the only one even remotely close would be Indianapolis. And then the Final Four is in San Antonio. And just realistically, they get to the Final Four in San Antonio, it'd be really hard not to go down.
I'm looking at. Let's see what tickets are for Denver. I looked a couple weeks ago. Was thinking about taking some customers. So how many people would you have if you were to come to Denver?
Two.
Right now, for the opening rounds Thursday, it's the cheapest ticket.
Thursday, Saturday.
$506 is the cheapest ticket.
For just ticket. Thursday or for the entire set, the whole package, like Thursday and Saturday? That might be the whole package. It might be for all three sets.
I would like to think that'd be the whole package because, 2 tickets are going to run you just over $1,000 right now. That'll change depending on who goes there. It is rounds 1 and 2.
So you're going to get 3 sessions of games. So $500 and some dollars. You think it's a lot, but you're going to watch like 6 or I think it's. Yeah, because I think it's 6 games. Because I think it's 4 games the first day and 2 games then on Saturday. So it'd be 6 games. So it's actually less than $100 a game. Which, if you just went to those games individually, $100 a ticket isn't awful. Now, you also buy a ticket for $500, and you're gonna have $125 fees on top of it, which that's a whole different argument. So the ticket's actually like $650.
Yeah, the fees are outrageous. So hopefully, it's expensive. That's double than when I looked a couple weeks ago. So hopefully Iowa State plays, like you said, in Milwaukee, because then that'll save on the travel cost too compared to a Denver trip.
Yeah, Denver, I would still drive. You could fly. I would look real quick at flights. Just if it happens to be $150, then it's probably worth it, depending on the times of the flight. But just flying sucks. Just in general, that. It's just
especially right now.
You're just not in control, and that's what stinks.
Yeah, it's flying's a little hectic right now. It seems like. So that will start next week. I got a show up in Fort Collins till Wednesday. But yeah, if it does happen to be in Denver and you make the trip out, I'll be around so I can come meet you.
Yeah. All right. Even if you don't go to the games or whatever, you can definitely hang out. So that's the thing with going to the NCAA tournament is, they win that first game, which Iowa State's going to be a 3. They should win. They've lost. Don't kid yourself. They've lost as a 2 and a 3 over their history. They should win. Then you got a whole day of nothing. You go watch the games, but in Denver or in Milwaukee or in Wichita, you've got a day where there's no games. So it's like, well, what do you do now? Well, I know what you do, but you go have fun and you find an establishment that has adult beverages and you go have fun.
If you go to Wichita, you got to go to the Pump House.
The Pump House?
It's right across the street from the Courtyard Hotel. That's Owen Bohr and I have spent many a days and nights in there. So yeah, go check out the Pump House if you go to Wichita.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing about Wichita would be kind of nice is you are going south, so you might get a little bit warmer. But
bring the golf clubs.
Yeah.
maybe.
I played 2 holes of golf yesterday. Went and filled up the golf cart with gas. Brett and I on Sunday filled up the tires. And it was nice. And I'm like, well, about Cody was out there. It was getting just right about dark. I'm like, heck, I'm going to play 2 holes. So I went and played 2 holes.
It's better than nothing.
1 and 9 on harvest.
1 and 9. Are you in mid-season form or no?
Bogey.
You just got to buy new clubs and new clothes. It'll fix your game for you.
Absolutely. All right, that's probably really about enough basketball because it's conference tournament. It is what it is. But I think over the course of the last few years, we've really seen that it doesn't matter as much as we think it does, because it really is only about 10%. They value Iowa State's game against Colorado in Hawaii on November 20th the same as tomorrow's game against Cincinnati. Not good teams. Both of them will be at neutral sites. It's 1 game out of 32. So let's just say they do get to the finals or quarters. They play 3 games. Essentially, that's only 10% of the season. That's what they're grading this weekend on. Right or wrong, that's the way they do it. So it doesn't have as big of effect as you would like to think. And they aren't. One of the things they used to do is like last 10, but that is not one of the things they look at now, which I do think that should be looked at more, because it does matter how you're playing right now. If someone's hurt or whatever, the injuries they are supposed to take into account. But I think last 10 should be weighted a little bit higher than it is, because I don't think it's supposed to be at all.
It definitely should be a factor how you're playing your last 10. I mean, we see it all the time. You mentioned injuries. Teams start out good going, then they get cold, or vice versa. Teams have a bad start to the season, then the last 10 they're on fire. So yeah, I would definitely think that the last 10 should matter a little bit at least. And then as we're transitioning, we talked about it before we got started on the first time, but the NFL never stays out of the news for long, do they?
No, it's March Madness. It's basketball, and then this weekend up until tomorrow when everybody can sign, the NFL just sticks their head in and say, we're going to, in the words of Lee Corso, not so fast, my friends. We are going to take over. We're back. Quarterbacks moving all over the place. Defensive linemen moving all over the place. The NFL just shows how it doesn't matter what time of year, doesn't matter what's happening, and the NFL is king. You look at what leads Sports Center, what leads Stephen A. Smith's show, what leads Get Up, all the shows. It's Sam Darnold to the Seahawks. It's Daniel Jones to here. It's Nick Bosa with the Bills. It's, you name your person. The 49ers are letting everybody go, trading everybody. Myles Garrett said he was out. Now he's back because they $40 million talks, which I agree with. I mean, it's you want to win, but you also want to make money. I get it. The Bears are making moves at offensive line. It's a big deal, and the NFL has got it figured out. They are the kings.
They're always in the news just about, and then about 6 or 7 weeks from now, whatever it is, they'll have the NFL draft, so they'll be right back in it the week before, and then the week of course, the draft will be a big deal. There's a ton to go through. We don't need to go through them all. We'll start with Sam Darnold first. Geno got traded to the Raiders.
Yep.
And a lot of people were freaking out. It's really only $33 million per year. That puts him right at 18th per year average, which is about fine. I mean, you start getting down below that, and it's really the rookie pay scale. So 33 per year is really not that bad, and it's only 55 guaranteed. So it's not the 100 or the 110 that was originally reported, or it can be that, I should say, but only 55 is guaranteed.
And I think it's good on all parties, because if you look at it, $33 million for a quarterback for the Seahawks, that's on the lower end.
Mm-hmm.
Darnold, you're getting these guaranteed money, and you signed a 3-year contract. You were not getting that at the Vikings. The Vikings were going to keep going 1 year. And you might have got 40, but it'd been a 1 year. Now you're getting at least 55, however long it lasts. You're getting more money from the Seahawks and more stability. So that's good for Darnold. Vikings didn't want the 3-year deal, which is what Darnold wanted. So good for everybody involved. The one that surprises me is Daniel Jones leaving. I thought they wanted him.
Well, they may have wanted him, but they may wanted him at $10 million.
Right. Yep.
The Colts offered 14, and he's going to get a chance to play with the Colts because Anthony Richardson, first of all, he hasn't been very good, and he's been hurt a lot. So Daniel Jones is going to play. I don't know if he's going to start necessarily, but one last thing on the Sam Darnold deal. Geno Smith, there's rumors that he wanted around $40 million per year on an extension. Well, if the Seahawks could have got a deal done, let's say at $40 million on a 3-year deal, well, Sam Darnold's younger. And 33 compared to 40 is a lot cheaper.
Yep.
And you trade Geno and you got a 3rd-round pick. They've got 11, I think right now 11 draft picks. The compensatory picks just came out, but they've got a first, 2 seconds, and 2/3. The Seahawks do. Everybody's bailing on Seattle right now, and I don't know how good Sam Darnold's going to be per se, but whatever their win total is, and I've been searching for it on DraftKings. It's not out yet, but they're over/under on wins. I would take the over right now on the Seahawks just because everybody's crapping on them, and they were a decent team last year. And they're going to have a ton of draft picks if they hit on some of those. So the moving off Geno Smith was the right move. You got younger and cheaper at quarterback, and you picked up a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah, and $7 million. Well, that's not a lot, but that's a player or two, and the players help.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's 33. Like I said, it puts him at 18th. It's not that big of a deal. Essentially, it's a 2-year deal. Can be a 3. So if it turns out to be a 3-year deal, and they don't release him, well, that means he's playing good and they're winning a bunch of games, probably getting the playoffs. So at that point, then it's really even a better bargain than it is right now.
So just kind of continue with the quarterback. So the Vikings are in with J.J. McCarthy.
Mm-hmm.
I think Aaron Rodgers, come on down. But I think Aaron Rodgers, now this one baffles me. I don't understand this. Steelers, Aaron Rodgers?
Mm-hmm. That's more than likely where he's going to end up is the Steelers. Russ is probably gone. Fields obviously went to the Jets. The Vikings are going to go with McCarthy. Part of the reason that you want to go with McCarthy is he's on the rookie pay scale.
Yep.
So you want to find out.
And you got to see. And you got to
see if he can play. You got to surround him with talent. You can spend more on the cap. That's the big advantage of getting these rookie quarterbacks is you've got them on the pay scale. So you can find out if they can play. You can build the team around them. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, by all reports, it's probably down to Pittsburgh. Giants are probably second, and then I guess Tennessee has to be thrown in there, but it'll most likely be Pittsburgh. I'd rather go there if I was him than the Giants. Yeah. Pittsburgh's got a winning culture. We know Mike Tomlin never has a losing season. Now, I don't know how good Aaron's going to do, but it'll be better than what the Jets was.
I just, from a Pittsburgh Steelers culture, always win. I can't believe, even if Tomlin wants him, if I'm the Rooneys, my family's owned this team for 120 years. We don't sign people like this. Never have, and I don't want to ever. I can't believe they're going to sign off on this.
Well, they don't sign off on a lot of positions. We know what their history is with receivers. They've got a lot of head cases, and they just traded for another, which is a 2nd-round pick that they don't have now for DK Metcalf. He and George Pickens are probably going to lead. There's a chance they're going to trade George Pickens too. Is the rumor out there because he's on the last year of his contract. Are they going to keep both those guys paid because they're similar players? They both get a ton of penalties. So those two combined, if they do play together this year, will probably lead the league in unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, at least from the receiver group. Yeah, it's for Aaron. I don't know. And then, if you look at the Giants, I mean, who do you bring in? You've got Russell Wilson out there, Aaron Rodgers potentially, and then you start getting into Gardner Minshew, Carson Wentz, or Cooper Rush. And really, does it matter who any of those 5 that you bring in at this point? Is it really going to make a difference? And I think that gets to Shedeur Sanders. Are the Giants going to trade up to number 1? I think you're going to start to hear that heat up here soon. Try to go get Cam Ward. And then at 3, if Shedeur is there, let's say they sign Cooper Rush or Gardner Minshew. Can Brian Dable and those guys really go into a season with Gardner Minshew at quarterback when they're on the hot seat already? They're going to get fired.
Gardner Minshew starts 1-4, you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right then and there, I think. Probably GM and Dable right out the door.
It'd be pretty close. So I think Shedeur Sanders is going to probably start to heat up a little bit more again at number 3, again, unless the Giants trade up to number 1. So the quarterback carousel starting to settle a little bit. As you said, Joey Bosa just signed with the Bills about an hour before we got started. DeAndre Hopkins went to the Ravens. Safety Justin Reed, the former Chief, went to the Saints.
Yep.
I don't know what's happened here, since we've been on. And then, the compensatory picks just came out a little bit ago too. Dolphins, Baltimore, San Francisco, and Cowboys all got 4 picks, and the Chargers and Seahawks got 3. And then, there's a list of others that got other picks. But that's coming out. Your Bears continue to build the trenches. Brought in center Drew Dahlman, so they're going to have a brand new starting offensive line just about.
Which we needed. I mean,
you did. And Grady Jarrett and some others there on the O-line and D-line. If you're going to overpay, I'd prefer it to be on O-line and D-line and not receivers and players like that. So the Bears should be better. A lot of people are saying that they're winning the offseason. Of course, they won the offseason last year too. So that's in Bears fashion. But, I like what they've done. Patriots have spent the most money, and most of the really big deals are done at this point. But over the next couple of days, you'll start to see better value for teams now that the big names are off the market for the most part.
Do you think the Bears are going to take Genty at 10 or 11, whatever they are?
They're plus like 135. They're the favorites.
And a lot of Bears fans going crazy because that's way too high for a running back. But Ben Johnson went and got Gibbs when he was with Detroit, way higher than everybody thought he should. But it worked out really well. I'm not a big fan of that pick, but I am going to put my faith in Ben Johnson. So if he picks him, I do think that's the best thing for their offense. So I'll go. In Ben, we trust.
Yeah, I looked earlier. I think it was like plus 140 or something like that. So see if I can pull it up real quick without taking too long. I don't know what's going on with DraftKings. But yeah, they were the favorites. Genty's going to be in play. Tyler Warren, like we talked about, maybe an offensive tackle or defense. Genty, I don't know what's going to go on with Genty. I almost wondering if he's maybe even gone before number 10. Because this is a weird draft. It's not a strong quarterback draft. There's good depth at offensive tackle, but there's no super elite offensive tackle in this draft. If Joe Alt was in this one, he'd be the first tackle taken. So I think there is a chance that Genty goes a little bit sooner than people were expecting.
All right. Anything else in the NFL? And then before we transition to college football, which is in the news as well.
No, I mean, everybody can get on Twitter, Instagram, ESPN now and see all the signings. You can go per team. I mean, there's been dozens and dozens. The salary cap went up. Some of these contracts look really big. But, again, the salary is going up every year, so it's not as bad.
It went up way more than people thought. That's why some of these – everybody's looking at these contracts. Well, they can all spend more. So all of a sudden you thought you were going to pay this guy $40 million. Now you can pay him $45 million, and it's really the same value.
Yeah, I guess the last thing on the NFL would be, Brock Purdy is going to get paid. The 49ers are going through. They had that 5 or 6 year window where they were going for it as they should have. And now this is part of it. It's part of salary cap. The Trey Lance trade where they traded away a bunch of picks. That's coming back to hurt them a little bit. So this is part of it. It kind of sucks to see Juszczyk and Deebo Samuel and some of those guys because those guys were core players. But they're still going to hold on to Trent Williams, Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, and then we'll see what Purdy gets paid. My guess would be he and his agent are looking for about 56 per because all the latest top quarterbacks have signed for 55 per year. The report came out that San Francisco offered 45 per year. Then it came out that was false. So I'm sure it's going to be somewhere in between 45 and 55.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the reality of the quarterback position today. Now, they do not have to sign him right now, right? Mm-hmm. Or extend him. He still would have to play one more year on his rookie deal, correct?
Correct, but I've talked about that for a few years. I'm like, eventually there's going to be a team that makes a quarterback play it out, but most of the time they get the deal done. So it sounds good to us. It's probably the smart move. Make him play one more year, a prove-it year, but very rarely does that happen. So my guess is just like most of these quarterbacks and these teams, they're probably going to get something done now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a little surprising they're not making him take it out, play it out a little bit, just so they could have kept all these guys. Or I think they just decided our run was over. We got to get younger. We got to dump some salary because you're going from $975,000 for your quarterback to $55 million for your quarterback.
Cuts have to be made. It's where I said it's a salary cap league. So this is part of it. They had that 5 or 6 year window, couple Super Bowls. It was well worth it. They came close a couple of times. So now it's a little bit of a reset. I don't think it's a full rebuild. They're the 49ers. Shanahan, they're going to be fine. I wouldn't be surprised if they make it back to the playoffs next year. They're well run. I think they've got a good amount of draft picks too coming up in this draft. So if they hit on a few players, they'll be right back in the playoff hunt. So what it comes down to is what's Purdy going to get paid, and then what money they have left over, who can they bring in, and how do they do in the draft.
I hope he gets a lot of money, which 55 is a lot, but I hope he gets a lot, so he gives it to Cyclone football NIL. Yeah. Just like Halliburton and Yang do. Sign big contracts, boys. We need good players at Iowa State.
Yeah, no, that's right. We'll see what he gives back to Iowa State there. So that's really it for the NFL. And then college football. I didn't see an article on this. It was just Urban Meyer talking today, and I don't know if you heard about this, but I had it written down to kind of explain it if you need.
Yeah, you wrote it out real well. I'll kind of let you do it, but yeah, I did hear about this. 4-4-2-2-1, is that correct? 4 Big Ten, 4 SEC, 2 Big 12, 2 ACC, and then 1, G5, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. It's inevitable. That's what's going to happen. I don't like it. I think it should be, and this could go against the Big 12, but just like this year in SEC basketball, they have 4 of the best 6 teams in the country. If some year that the SEC would have that, or the Big 10, and it's a 16-team playoff, they deserve 5 or 6 sometimes. Mm. I believe that. And then there's going to be times where the Big 12 deserves 3. That's just reality. I just hate having it mandatory that they get this. Just like I do think, having the mandatory buys is dumb too. Arizona State and Boise State should not have been the 3 and 4 this year. Just should not have been. They weren't the 3rd and 4th best team in the country. You just have to go with it. It's going to go to 16. I think eventually it's even going to go more than that. But I think it's just inevitable we'll go to 16 in a year or two. Now, the interesting part is how they're doing it, how they're getting to their 4 and how they're getting to their 2. And I like it. I don't like it. For the 4, I'll let you explain it. For the Big Ten and SEC, how do they get to their 4? Kind of explain that.
So how it would work is the Big Ten and the SEC would automatically get 4 teams in.
Yep.
First and second will get auto bids. Mm-hmm. Then what you would have is you'd have a play-in, kind of like the NBA does. Yep. You'd have 3rd, 3 and 6 play, and you'd have 4 versus 5 play. So what this does, it's first of all, it'd be a 14-team playoff, but essentially it's a 20-team playoff when you factor in all the other teams that are eligible. It's just not called a 20-team playoff. So again, Big Ten, SEC, they get 4 in, 1 and 2 are auto bids, 3 would play 6, 4 would play 5 for the right to get in. So that brings teams like an Iowa in, where Iowa's going to have trouble finishing in 1, 2, or 3 a lot of years. But if they can get into that 5th or 6th spot, then teams like Iowa, Wisconsin, maybe in Minnesota some years, they have a chance to get in the playoff if they win that game.
If this would have been in play this year, Iowa would have played Indiana to go. Mm-hmm. Because Iowa was 6 and Indiana was 3. The question I have on that, 1 and 2 automatically go. Are they playing in a championship game or not?
Urban Meyer
you'd have to play a game for seeding purposes. Mm-hmm. But essentially everybody's like, well, both teams in. Why would you play it? Well, Oregon and Penn State were in this year. It was just the way it was. The Texas and Georgia were in the playoff this year when they were playing. So, it already's happened where the teams are in the playoffs. They're still trying to win a game. And then the Big 12 with 2 teams, your first place team gets in. And this is where the champion may have a bye. First place gets in, second and third play to get that second spot. I don't horribly hate it. It kind of goes back to that 2020 year that the Big Ten was having kind of their everybody play everybody, and then Michigan ducked out of Iowa. Like Iowa was really, I think they lost their first 2 games and then won like 6 in a row, and then was supposed to play Michigan. They didn't play. Then was supposed to play Missouri in the bowl game, and they didn't play. So it was kind of like, well, crap, But I don't hate it, but I just hate the lock 4 teams in. If you don't deserve 4 teams, then don't have 4 teams, and then don't lock yourself into 4 teams. Now a 14-team playoff, then you would have 2 at large, and then this is where they can get greedy. You play your 3 versus 6, your 6 wins, and then your 3 gets an at large bid.
Mm.
So then all of a sudden now you've got 6 in or 5 in. When your 6th place team shouldn't get in. Now there's some times where I think maybe those teams are like, if all of them are 10-2, they kind of all beat up on each other or didn't play each other. Just the reality of football now, where the conferences are too big, you can't play everybody. Everybody ends up 10-2. Probably all deserve in anyway. But I just hate the locked in numbers. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah, for the locked in, Big Ten, SEC getting 4, what it does, it takes the committee out. So, I mean, If you're in the top 4 of the standings, then you have a chance. Obviously, 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5 brings others into play. But, yeah, for the Big Ten and SEC, I think you still have to have the championship games because, again, depending who wins it, you could get the number 1 overall seed, in the playoffs. So those games are still going to matter. And then, yeah, for the Big 12 and ACC, I should say, they get 2 in. The champion automatically is, and then 2 versus 3 would play. So, like you said, I don't know if they would even have a Big 12 or ACC champ, or if they would just get in and then, 2 versus 3. So it does open it up to a lot more teams. Like I said, it would be a 14-team playoff from what I was understanding from Urban Meyer, but it'd be like a 20-team playoff essentially.
Yeah, just that first round would be conference playoff week, whatever you want to call it. I mean, you could call it whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable. Money, it's more money. It's more everything. One interesting thing, the Big 12 came out yesterday or today, like 9 or 10 Friday night games, and Iowa State didn't get any of them, which is a good thing in my book, but just surprising they didn't get any, even on the road. I could see them not wanting them on home games, just like Iowa doesn't want them on home games. But sometimes I don't like Friday night games in general. It is kind of, I guess I shouldn't say that. It's kind of nice when I am up at Iowa State camping, turn a game on, watch it, and have a few brews. And unfortunately, it's going to get more and more, and these $1 million checks that every team is cashing, not even $1 million, tens of millions, hundreds of $1 million checks that each team cashes. When the TV says you're playing now, you're playing. That's the trade-off. They'll write you a check, but they're telling you when to play, and you can't argue about it. If you want to argue about it, don't cash the checks.
Yeah, that's essentially right. When you got more of this TV money coming in, there's going to be more games on Fridays. We've talked about it. Friday still feels like it's supposed to be high school football night. But, yeah, there's going to be more college games. Of course, they're going to try to spread it out as best they can. So, yeah, there's some interesting things going on with college football. Like I said, for the Big Ten, at least for Iowa, it does. If they were to go to that wouldn't be too bad because, as I said, there's a lot of years where Iowa can finish 4th, 5th, or 6th. And then, of course, you have a chance to get in the playoff. The one downside, though, is if that 3 versus 6, that 4 versus 5, if they've already played, why do they got to play again, right? That's going to be an argument. If the 4 already beat the 5 or the 3 already beat the 6 earlier in the season, then why did they have to play a second time?
Yep. I mean, yeah. Again, it's a little bit, it's a little sad. Just it devalues the regular season more and more and more because you can lose now. College football is always a sport where if you didn't lose, you had the chance. If you lost, then you're out. You had a chance, but you were not in control anymore. And now, once, twice, 3 times, you are still with a chance if you're the right team.
In my opinion, that's the way it should be. It's the only sport, professional or college, I know that I could think of that didn't have a playoff or an expanded tournament. So in my opinion, it's the way to do it. These are young kids. They should be allowed to lose a game or 2. Now you start getting into 3 or 4 losses, that changes things a little bit in the argument. But I'm okay with it. All the other sports have playoffs. There are some trade-offs. It's not perfect. We saw this year in the playoff with the buys and some of that stuff was definitely It needed to be better, and they're going to get that fixed. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if they're actually going to go to it. It was just something that Urban Meyer was talking about today.
Yeah, I do think. I mean, I think everything's on the board. A lot of people are throwing things out there. College football and college sports in general are money hungry. The Big Ten and SEC want the most money for themselves. So whatever format and situations work best for them, they're going to do it. It's that simple.
Yeah, whatever brings in the most money, that's the NIL. Like we've talked about it before, colleges are bringing in GMs now, so to speak. So they're going to manage their NIL money, aka their cap. Every team's got a little bit different. We'll see what guidelines get put in. But yeah, that's a little bit of college football news. Yeah, like we talked about, even NFL and college football right now they're still in the news.
And actually, Iowa State yesterday had a football press conference to talk about their spring football and everything. So it was, week of the conference tournament, and all of a sudden I turn on when I got home last night or whatever. I go to YouTube a lot and just watch that kind of stuff. I find something stupid to watch, and but I watch some podcasts, and all of a sudden, Cyclone Fanatic and Matt Campbell go on. I didn't even know what it was, and so then I watched his press conference for 25 minutes. I was like, well, okay.
Is Iowa State going to do a spring game this year? I know some colleges are getting
not real. Their spring game has been very, very hybrid. But I don't think it's really going to be anything this year. Like they're even not. I don't think fans are even go in or anything. So,
yeah, I've heard some of the big colleges are just getting rid of the game altogether.
Well, and you want to know the reason? They're paranoid. They don't want their people in the stands, people here talk, and your young running back that's not going to play this year has a great spring game. Because he carries the ball 15 times, and your star running back standing, like Iowa State, like Abu Sama and Carson Hansen are on the sideline carrying 1 or 2 times each. And then your freshman guy that you're redshirting, or, that, and all of a sudden he has 10 carries for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. The portal opens in May, and someone got to him and going to offer him, you're paying him $100,000, and all of a sudden College F is going to pay him $300,000. All right. That's what they're paranoid about. Coaches are paranoid.
Yeah, the transfer portal, that's definitely probably another reason they don't want to play the game. And because the season's getting longer, you want to try to avoid any potential injuries with the expanded playoffs, more games. It's like the NFL where the CBA, they want less practices, and less preseason games, right? Well, this is sort of the same idea in a little bit of a way. You want to avoid the injuries and the extra wear and tear on the body.
And Iowa State plays a week earlier than everybody else this year with the game in Dublin. So they are a week ahead. So everything's just a week shorter from the spring game to the first game, 7 days. So, you sprain your ankle really bad or pull a hamstring in the spring game, it's one less week that you can get healthy. So, and that does matter.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more and more like the NFL. College has always been like the minor leagues for the NFL. It still is, of course. Now they're just getting paid. So we're going to see the schedules look a little bit more like the NFL, the expanded playoffs, get rid of spring games and all that type of stuff. So, yeah, football's still in the news, but I'm still kind of in basketball mode now.
It's basketball mode, but yeah. But again, when you turn on the sports news, NFL is still king. Anything else you want to talk about real quick, Trev? Nope. On my end, just Iowa State both play tomorrow in men's basketball tournament. Iowa State should win. Iowa should not win. But for the seniors, for Peyton Sanford, for Fran McCaffrey, if this is it, which I do think it is, I hope the season lasts at least one more day. And then Iowa State, they need to win tomorrow. I'd like to see them beat BYU. Then you play Houston most likely, and then it's a toss-up. If you win, you win. You don't, you don't. And I think you live with that, and that's okay. You go back. You got a week rest, get everybody even a little bit more healthy, and hopefully you go to Milwaukee and win those 2 games, and then see where the chips may fall in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, 2 programs heading in different directions. Iowa State's doing really well, as you mentioned. For Iowa, I think they're a 5.5-point underdog to Ohio State, and as you said, this this could be the last time we see Fran as coach.
So just say they lose tomorrow, but they get invited to that Crown tournament. Have you heard about this in Vegas?
I don't know if I have.
The Big 12, the Big 10, and the Big East are sending teams that don't get to the tournament out to Vegas March 26th through like April 1st or something like that for a tournament that I think money goes to the NIL of the teams, which is a good thing. I could see Iowa going to that, and then Fran, like, what do you do there? Because your players are in the portal. You don't have a head coach. I mean, I don't know. You want to send your team there because it's money for your program and for your players. But that'll be an interesting situation if that would occur.
Yeah, I've got no idea I haven't even really heard about that, so I'll have to check it out.
Look that up. The Crown. It's a Fox deal, so the SEC's out of it because they're ESPN. But SEC or East, saying it wrong. The Big East, the Big 12, and the Big 10 that all have the deals with Fox are going to it.
Yeah, I'll make sure to check that out. But yeah, for Iowa State, hopefully at least get a couple wins in the Big 12 tournament. Yep. And then for Iowa, I mean, this is kind of probably the last run for Fran. So we'll see if they can pull the upset versus Ohio State tomorrow.
Yeah, and again, thanks everybody for listening. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen, YouTube, Facebook. Thanks everybody for listening and following us. And we'll send some stuff out for the bracket games, and we'll get some prizes and stuff for the winners and everything. So stay tuned. We'll send it out on social media, and we'll talk about it next week on the podcast. But have a great week, and we'll talk to everybody next week.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.